What's up, everybody? Welcome to another hopefully good and fun episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. I am Scott Leese, co-founder of the Surf and Sales Summit, along with my good friend and partner in this business, Richard Harris. What's going on, dude? How are you today?
Well, you know how I am, man. I'm massively frustrated because my son is growing up too fast. And I didn't even tell you this one. Bodie, our youngest, has decided he wants to have a party on Saturday. And the big rule, of course, is he's a freshman in high school. It's like, buddy, there's no drinking. Like, don't you need to let your friends know. He's like, well, if I see it, I'll tell them to stop. I'm like, if you see it, I'm like, how are they getting it? Like,
Yeah,
we locked everything away.
Yeah.
So great.
So
That's just what a genius line, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like just like it gets you just far enough away to where if you really snap on him, you're a complete asshole.
Yeah.
He's already mastering objection handling, Richard.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's already got it figured out.
So anyway, so Scott, maybe you and I should do a podcast about my last 30 days as a parent, separate of all this.
We should do that. It's like how to be a parent in tech in 2024/2025. And it basically will be 45 minutes of you melting down.
Yes.
And me with like a shit-eating grin on my face.
Yeah, you giggling. You're gonna giggle the entire time. Yeah. So
pretty much.
Anyway, back to more important things.
We want to thank our sponsors real quick, those people who help us make this whole podcast and the Surf and Sales event worthwhile and a treat and hopefully valuable for you all. So I'll go first. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Tech Sales Accelerator. Check it out at techsalesaccelerator.com. Great place to launch your six-figure tech sales career in 2024 and beyond without prior experience or a college degree. Check it out, techsalesaccelerator.com.
Cool. And our friends over at Peel, get Peel, PEEL.ai. If you haven't talked to Brennan over there, you should check it out. Because you got a whole new way to engage. And here's the thing that's going to blow our minds, right? And Adam, once we introduce you, you can tell us what you think too, is that apparently, allegedly, by 2030, right, we're almost 5 years away from that, 90% of decision makers are going to be Gen Z and millennials. Right. And that's going to affect decision making and how you already try to connect with your buyers and your prospects. So he's got a whole tool out there, getpeel.ai. So go check it out and certainly get ahead of the game by at least a few months, if not 5 years. So check them out at getpeel.ai.
All right. And we are joined today by a very special guest who lives 15 minutes from me, maybe. Down the road here in Austin, Texas. His name is Adam Robinson. If you don't know who he is and you are on LinkedIn, you have been living under a rock for the last year or so because he's had a, let's call it, meteoric rise to fame and hopefully good fortune. He's also, more importantly, the CEO and founder of two different companies at once, which is like a mind-blowing thing for anybody.
Elon's here?
Yes, it was.
Adam,
not quite.
Far superior person. But that's a whole story for another day.
Yeah. But if that's what we're competing on, probably.
Yeah, that's the bar. Or better person.
Yeah.
Not who's richer. Yeah, better person. Yeah. CEO of retention.com and RB2B. That's Adam Robinson. Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. And what is this, like your 700th episode or something? Something crazy like that, right?
Not quite that high, but we're around 500 or so.
We're getting to 500.
Yeah. That's amazing. I went on LinkedIn and I was like, I'll do anybody's B2B podcast. And like, surprise, surprise, I got asked to do like 20 first episodes. What I mean? And like, you just know, it's like, you're sitting there like, oh God, this is just such a waste of time. But anytime it's somebody who's done hundreds, it's like, like y'all have fans, at least tens of people are going to listen to this. You know what I mean? Like you might get like,
right.
Like I watch the YouTube stats of the videos they put on. It's like 10% of people make it all the way to the end, So, I just think podcasting is amazing because it's like a lot of your audience may know who I am by LinkedIn or whatever, but like you got to serve LinkedIn what LinkedIn wants, right? There's no, and like of the people who are going to listen to this show, some of them are going to make it the whole way. And like, I just think if you listen to somebody and you don't hate them for like an hour, you really like them. You know, like that's just you know what I mean? Like if you don't fucking hate that person and you're like on a run or whatever, and you get to the end of the hour, it's like, yeah, cool dude. What's he do? You know?
Yeah.
So that's like why I love these guest slots. It's like that's what I hope to get out of it.
Adam, just wait till like you're on some of these first edition podcasts, and then you help them build their brand. And then, you write a book and you go back to one of these first edition podcasts that's done very well, that's exploded. And you say, hey, I'd love to come back on, give some more tips and feedback. And yeah, of course, I'm going to mention my book. And of course, they big time you.
Right.
They're like, yeah.
They're like, yeah, you're not famous enough, bro.
Yeah. No, you're not it anymore. And this is true. This happened to me this year. Scott knows the story. I'm not going to mention it, but it's a well-known sales podcast, a very good sales podcast. And I was just like, you fuckers, like, go fuck yourself. You guys asked me to come to help spread your word, and you're going to fucking repay me that way.
Tell you what,
a lot of different
that's America, isn't it? It's just, it's the capitalist world we're living in.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Listen, I want to start off by asking you to share briefly one little elevator sentence about each of the companies that you're running, just so people have some context for the world that you play in.
Yep. So we do person level website visitor identity at both companies, meaning someone can hit your site, they don't fill out a form. We can figure out who some percentage of them are. And then with retention.com, it's e-commerce only. So there's a lot of very specific workflows related to e-commerce, which identity really helps. So like abandoned cart, abandoned product, abandoned checkouts, like if you can get more of those emails out to people, you will make way more money. It's as simple as that. Like, so that's what that company does. And then in March, we launched a B2B version of that. And the B2B version of that is, instead of resolving to a personal email and doing cart abandonments, we resolve to a LinkedIn URL and push it to a Slack channel. And it's freemium. So if you're listening and you just want to see it, you can drop it on your website, and within seconds, you like start seeing these visitors. I used to call them leads, but I need to get away from that because a website visitor is not a lead. It's like a signal. It's like quite far from a lead. And as sales professionals, I'm sure that you understand. It's like so much needs to happen before that person is actually a lead. But it's a fantastic signal, right? Combined with some other information. So but there's like this interesting continuum of like really small guys who are just totally captivated by seeing the traffic. And then it's unusable for growth stage SaaS now because we can't filter and route the leads yet, which I'm working on. And then actually like enterprise companies, it's great for because it's just a feed and they know what to do with it. So anyway, it's really fun.
So what is the strategy behind having those as separate companies and not one company that does two different things or has like two different products? Are they that differentiated?
Yes, like it is actually one company, but two. It is, what's that?
It's to protect his GDPR, issues on the LinkedIn side of stuff.
Yeah, well, the GDPR issue is the same on both sides. So it's one company with two product lines, but it's like, I think it's beneficial to have two different brands because everything is so different about the e-com use case and market and go to market than the B2B side. And it's a completely different like database infrastructure. It's like a totally different backend and site, and every single part of it is different except for that one piece where the pixel hits the site. You know what I mean? Like even what it does in the identity waterfall is totally different on the B2B side because we're optimizing to get a LinkedIn URL instead of a personal email. You know what I mean?
Are you able to mentally compartmentalize like the success of one if the other one is faltering or struggling a little bit? Like I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's say our B2B like has its best month ever, but retention has its worst month ever. How much can I really celebrate? And how much can I really, get upset? Does this like a way for me to sort of always just maintain?
A hedge.
Yeah, it's like a hedge. Like
You know,
how do you deal with that?
yeah. So like I am like 100% B2B right now. And I have this, my co-founder, Diana, you know, I still say I'm the CEO of retention.com, but she is really the CEO of retention.com. So she's
Okay.
operating it on a day-to-day basis. I still make very large strategic calls, and I go to an executive meeting once a week, and I have one-on-ones with all the executives that are running it. But like, I'm not in the weeds on that business at all anymore. And in terms of like, yeah, there is sort of a hedge. One of the things that I do, which is the reason I have such a big LinkedIn following, is I do a build in public, and I'm very transparent about bad shit
Yeah.
that happens in our business.
Yeah.
And there was a really rough time in the beginning of this year, which a lot of SaaS companies felt, I think, where, long story short, like people just started buying less software, and we like couldn't keep up with our churn. And like we had a bunch of new competitors who were just like biting at our ankles, and it was just gnarly. It was like 4 months of shrinking in a row. And I'm sitting here writing about it on LinkedIn for God knows what fucking reason, you know, like in the fourth month in a row is like, okay, like this is the hardest post. And by the way, we had just launched our B2B, so it wasn't contributing at all, right? Like
Yeah.
the first 6 weeks of our B2B had the pricing wrong, and we were only 5K MRR 6 weeks in. So it was horrible. But then like it's sort of that business stabilized there, and our B2B really started taking off, and now they're both growing. So like now it's like, and I think it's like a seasonal, there's less churn for an e-com product, like going into Black Friday or whatever. I don't know, but like, yeah, there's definitely like kind of like a bittersweet tension. You know, it's amazing when they're both growing. Earlier this year, I was convinced that retention.com was like, I was like, dude, for the pipeline we're generating versus our churn every month, like this business is going to get cut in half. But like that just didn't happen. I don't know. I don't understand the metrics at all. I don't understand with the pipeline we're generating and our churn, how the business is still where it was a year ago. Doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, it's like we close 100% of our pipeline. And I don't know. It's a very weird thing.
I have a question. You know, you brought up something that I like, particularly from a founder perspective, right? And again, I don't know if you're a co-founder or founder, but regardless, a 4-month slump, right?
Dude.
I'm sitting here like I want to talk about like, what did you do? Like, when did you start to panic? Was it after a month? What did you do? What did you recognize? Because I'm sitting here, I know Scott. 4 months in, and it's a thing. Scott is panicking.
I'm panicked after 4 hours.
Right. And he's, you know, knowing Scott, and Scott, tell me if I'm wrong, you'd be seriously considering like, I don't think this is worth it anymore. Like I probably, and you like to chase a new thing, right? Right.
I probably would, which is maybe why I'm not a successful, startup founder. Right. I don't have the stick with it power.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm just curious about like, when did you really panic? What did you start to look at? Like, just walk us through that a little bit, because I think a lot of people have experienced it and they just don't know what to do.
Yeah. So like, I'm bootstrapped, thank God, don't have any institutional capital. And I think it's given me the leeway to start this B2B product line. And, you know, as my other business was like waning, I think if I like raised growth equity, these people would be like, this is a distraction. Go build the product that we invested in. Even though if I didn't even think it was the right thing, I think they still would have made me do it, because that's what you do, right? It's like, go hire these people, keep, building for these Shopify guys. So what happened really was, over that time period, we expected some softness, because for the same reason we don't have churn going into Black Friday, we have churn coming out of it. Anyone who's like, I don't need this anymore, they're doing it after Black Friday. But then the 4th month in a row, that was the biggest down month. Like, I was just like, I'm betting my entire career from here on out on this B2B thing. The marketing was working in a way that I could have never imagined. I mean, this LinkedIn thing, right? Like, and the audience is there. It's just like this perfect alignment between me being my ICP and my ICP living on LinkedIn, and me being able to create very unique content from what I'm willing to say that no one else is.
But slow down for a second. So let's go back to month one. You start to
Yeah.
see something happen,
It
and
was
you're
kind
like,
of expected in month one,
okay, it was.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
The end of month two comes along. What are you thinking?
This sucks.
Okay.
This B2B thing. So like
So,
at the end of February, we're launching our B2B on March 1. And I'm
right.
like, this thing better take off.
Right.
Right.
So okay, so you get to the end of month two and you're like, okay, well now I do have something to focus on. Are you
Yeah.
starting to try and figure out what happened in those 2 months?
Oh yeah. I got a whole team
Okay.
trying to figure out what happened. And
Okay.
by the way, like there was also a shift. We were kind of like going for this unicorn thing in 2023, which is like another story I would love to get into because it's sort of, you were talking about the future go to market and Gen Z buyers and everything. I just have like a wild view of what I think software is going to be in like 10 years. So we're like starting to realize over this time as we're shrinking with this team that we put in place that was like a unicorn sized team, that this business is not going to be a unicorn and we should run it for profit. We hadn't made the decision yet, but we're like, man, if this thing's going to keep just drifting lower, like we got the wrong team, you know?
Got it. Okay.
It's way, you know.
Okay. So then you get to the end of month.
We didn't make a move on that, by the way. It took us another 4 months to make a move on that.
Okay. So then you get to the end of month three and Scott's already, like,
oh, he's out. He's surfing. Yeah.
He's done.
He's totally changed his life.
Yeah. So what happens in month three, at the end of month three? And then I'm going to ask again about month four, but are you now reconfirming that belief that you maybe made at the end of month two that like, hey, we need to shift this to a profitability perspective? Or
yeah, every month that went by, the focus on like, can we figure out this churn problem? Is our CS process and team doing anything? Is it right? You know what I mean? Like we grew really fast. We are an inexperienced team and it just, you don't do it the right way the first time around. Right. So, there was a huge examination into the sort of operational inefficiency of what was going on.
And at what point did you start talking to customers? Month two, month three?
I would say, I would say, so this product that I sell on the continuum of products categories and churn rates associated to product categories, like a system of record or a CRM is like the lowest, right?
Got it.
Selling leads as a SaaS is the highest because there's just 10 reasons you'd cancel a lead source, and there's not 10 reasons you'd cancel the CRM. It's not like a mission critical workflow,
Got it.
So churn's always been a problem. It became a major problem earlier this year. And there was kind of just like a constant dialogue with every single customer who was churning or we felt like was showing signs that they might. There was a combination of trying to figure out what we could do about it. And is this org that we set up the right thing? Right. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? It was both things at once. It's like, there's a customer problem and there's probably like, we don't have the right team doing the right tasks. Right. Like, and every down month after that, just like rubs salt in the wound, right? It just really hurts and you don't know when it's going to end. It's fucking terrible.
So I'm going to
horrible.
So I'm going to ask one last question, then I'll turn it back over to Scott. Yeah. And thanks for getting so candid. Did you, by the time you got to month 5, right? Because you said you had 4 months, did you figure out what the problem was and what did you do to fix it? Or was it like, well, now we think it might be cyclical and we're going to have to wait and see what happens, in February of 2025?
So we are currently operating that business with 50% of the staff that we had during those down months. And it is growing, not shrinking. So lots of things I think happened. I think we had some people on the product who were not like our true ICP. I think we had a lot more of a team than we needed to accomplish what we needed to do. And then we actually kind of found a little bit of a new product market fit up market from where we were. And our penetration into that market is incredibly low. And we opened up a new TAM because we went from just e-com to e-com and publishers. And we have the cyclical benefit right this second of very few people are canceling this around Black Friday. So,
Right. Nobody touches their
but like
website now.
long story short, we've had 2 months of a smaller team, and these weren't even months that have typically been huge months for us. And if you would have asked me in March, I would have been like, yeah, we're going to just air is just going to keep coming out of this balloon. So like, we need a smaller team. What happened, and every time I've like done a material, so like, I think we just fell out of the product market fit that we had 18 months earlier because of a lot of different reasons. Our market penetration was very high. New competitors came in, a lot of different stuff. And my only thing as a founder, when you fall out of product market fit, is get as small as possible and find a new product market fit. So that's kind of like what we did. And every time I've gotten as small as possible in that situation, the business has started operating much better. Because there's just a lot of, especially when the problem is you've fallen out of product market fit, there are a lot of people sitting around not moving the needle, which is the founder's fault, right? Like something about I should have been on to what we were doing now a year ago, but we also could have done we also could have done it with way fewer bodies in the first place because I totally misread the opportunity. Anyway.
Is there any part of you now that regrets building in public and kind of committing to that?
The reason that I would say no is because of how much I'm getting back for it now and the reasons that I believe that it's working, right? So it's like this incredible,
the good far outweighs the bad.
Yeah, it's like this incredible authenticity that I'm able to convey in the content is the reason that it works. And like an example of why I'm the only one who can say it is like when we actually did this layoff, the business was stable, super profitable. We were doing 8 million profit run rate or something, and we laid off 20 people. And like, I'm like, guys, I got to post about it. They're like, the executive team was like,
"Oh, Scott loves to rail on those people."
Yeah, they're like, don't post about it. And I'm like, guys, like my whole brand is posting about something like this. If I don't post this and someone finds out that we do it, the integrity of my content is forever damaged because of what my brand is. And then they're like, tone it down. And I was like, tone it down how? And they're like, take off the fact that we couldn't solve the churn problem and take off the fact that you think we fell out of product market fit. I'm like, okay,
those are the best parts.
Even if I take that out, the employees are going to read it and they're still going to feel like shit, right? If I take that out, then my founder audience and my marketer audience, it's going to take all the teeth out of the post. So what did we accomplish, right? And then they ended up letting me post what I wanted to post. And, I feel bad for the employees, but it was an unbelievable post. People are like, I can't even admit this to myself looking in the mirror about my own business,
right?
Let alone my team, let alone LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. Is it, so, but there's a certain, it's like you're pot committed on transparency.
Oh, there's no going back. Yeah. No.
Do you fear? Is there any part of you that fears what might happen in the future? And you're like, oh, fuck, I really hope I don't have to talk about whatever. Or
no,
just like, nope.
I think there's
the good is going to outweigh the bad regardless.
Yeah, by far. And like, you might say like, oh, like the reason our B2B has, the people just like go found the vendors that we used and they copy it. The reason we have like 30 competitors now is because I'm working in public and saying that we crush it so hard. But like, man, these impressions that I get, there's no way for them to buy them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no way for you to purchase the quality of attention that I get on a post that is about these brutal parts of my journey. Right.
Could some of these other founders not argue like, well, I'll just do what you do? Can't I?
They try.
Isn't
so
what
like,
you're doing copyable in some way? It's like I can be just as transparent in theory.
I'll tell you what's hard. And yes, there are people trying, right?
Yeah.
Let's take Max from Warmly as an example. I don't know if you guys know what Warmly is.
Exactly. I know everything about all that. Yeah.
So after I had been working in public for 12 months, Max made the declaration that he was going to be the first SaaS ever to work in public for 12 months. or right. So
I love those.
and I literally commented on the post. I was like, oh, like amazing. Someone's finally doing this. Great. I've been waiting this whole time. So if you look at Max, he is 24 years old. It's the first time he's ever started a SaaS. He's been working on this for 4 years and he was at below 1 million ARR. It's like, okay, you can work in public. I'm not sure that I give a shit because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And if you look at how he's growing his company, it's very evident that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I'm just, you're not supposed to punch down. That's a rude thing to say about somebody. But like, while I'm have a 8 million run rate profit business and then like letting people go and like it starts growing again, he's like redoing his entire value proposition so he can raise money and hire 30 people at $1 million ARR, right? Like SDRs, BDR, like it's just like
everybody can tell their authentic story, but not every authentic story is built the same or as valuable.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is like the farther you are in your journey, the more valuable your perspective becomes, right? And I'm beating him up just because, for example's sake, right? So that's one thing. It's hard to wake up and be someone who's bootstrapped a 25 million ARR company in 5 years, who is also working in public. A couple people could do that, but like hardly any people have bootstrapped 25 million ARR, and then hardly anyone's willing to work in public. Now, the way you probably got to 25 million ARR was you used investor capital. If you took investor capital, there's no fucking way you could work in public. No way. You could try. You could say this is part of my marketing. The investors would sign on to it.
Yeah, and then so much.
And then the day would come where you had to let people go. And then the investor would be like, if you post that, you are fucking fired. Yeah, right? So like my executive team wanted to shut me down. An investor would have literally fired me for that post. Right? Like there's no two ways about it. Like so you're going to fuck up the next round. You're going to fuck up everything. You cannot post that. Right? Like, so I think it's like this unique combination of like how far along I am. And by the way, I think I'm a good storyteller because I think I value storytelling. If you look at Max's posts, they are documents of what he did the last month by category. It's like, we tried this SEO thing and it did this, this, and this. You know, we went on a whatever and it did this, this, and that. Like, if you look at my LinkedIn post, it's as much the arc of a mini hero's journey in each post as it is the information and context about what's going on. And I think that makes for much better, okay, this is where I start getting on my far out vision of what go-to-market's going to be. I believe that I currently am in the edutainment business. And I happen to have a SaaS at the end of the funnel. And I don't know another CEO that sees the world that way. And you might ask yourself, why do you think you're in the edutainment business? And why did you get so like convicted in this belief? 2023, I tried to do the predictable revenue playbook when we had like, I thought we had a unicorn twice over. I go put a bunch of boots on the ground, try to send some outbound, do some outbound sales. And like, it did not work at all. I mean, when I say like we were booking more demos with one person than with 10 BDRs, like no kidding. And then downsized, culture got better. Everything started speeding up for the time being. And then I'm going to start this B2B company. And I'm like, we got a churn problem. So like, let's go to mid-market since I kind of have a brand with these people and do sales led into the mid-market to try to like start with a lower churn buyer persona, right? At least if we're not going to get a lower churn product category. And then I'm like, wait a second. I just got smoked on that, right? Like, and then I'm like, okay, thought experiment. What is the future-proof go-to-market? And meanwhile, we sell the e-commerce brands at retention.com. And I'm watching this influencer thing proliferate. Like Kim Kardashian is not a billionaire because she makes good lipstick, right? Like it is just this thing that the social media machine does. It just rapidly elevates people's status in your head if you can consume enough of their content. And then once someone gets in the position where there's so much trust, where the audience is willing to pay them for advice, then that person can sell literally anything.
Anything.
Right? Yeah. So it's like that trend is a mega trend up and to the right. There is no way that's undoing itself. With how social media is, being able to aggregate audience around ideas from a personal profile and then direct that towards different things is in the same way cold email is going down into the right and it's never coming back, that is going up into the right. So like, that was like kind of thesis number one. And it's like, okay, let's assume you can't call someone and you can't email someone and you can't do any of this stupid shit like instantly and, you know, whatever, like this spamming inbox bullshit where like, okay, like response rates are 0.1%. Well, I'll just send 7 million emails, you know, like in this, right? So like, let's say that because that will happen. 11xAI is coming in. It's like, well, you don't need a person to send these 7 million emails again. I'll have a robot do it. And then it'll work for a month and then it'll die, right? So
yeah,
assuming response rates are 0, it's like, how do you sell software? And like, I still think forever, if you're selling a $250 to $1 million deal, you'll be able to take someone to a Lakers game, build trust that way, and close it, right? The in-person ABM, whatever you want to call it, like bring someone to a physical place, get them to know you as a human and make the sale. That'll always work. Now, I think it's a tube of toothpaste. The middle, gone, right? Like sitting at a desk, sending out messages to people. There is just no conceivable way that that is even remotely effective, maybe even the next 2 years. So what do you do if you don't want to like have a boots on the ground IBM style, you know, Salesforce? I think the totally future-proof go-to-market model is influencer-led, freemium distribution with like and then I'm not good at this yet, but like however good you are at sending people into your value ladder, once the freemium thing has done its thing, that will be how successful you are at growing your revenue. We suck at it now. Our churn's terrible. Our product doesn't really work. And then I think the third part of this, which I just started, which is where this is getting very out there. I think with these influencer profiles, the most common and probably the most valuable business, maybe not the most valuable business, the most common business is this high ticket coaching, information, whatever you want to call it, right? And in SaaS, there was a guy who did this better than, the only guy who's ever done it's Russell Brunson. People in SaaS kind of dismissed him. He had a company called ClickFunnels. He sold to internet marketers, affiliate marketers. So it's like very lowbrow for our holier than thou B2B community, right? Like, but this guy, what he was doing was he was at the top of the ecosystem in this influencer position, teaching people how to grow their businesses for years. Finally, he creates this landing page builder that like integrates all this stuff that they had to tie together before it, right? It was like a landing page builder where you could also integrate it with Stripe and it would also send the emails and it would do the whole funnel. And it was called ClickFunnels. This guy did a one-to-many sale where it was like an hour and a half presentation, kind of like Tony Robbins, like, here's how you grow your affiliate marketing business. It requires funnels. And then at the stack and close was like, here's the course on how to build funnels, the course on how to drive traffic, the course on this, that, the other, and a year of ClickFunnels for free, which was a $97 product, $7,000 bundle, all for $997, right? And with a totally high churn audience and product, he got that thing to over 100 million ARR in 36 months, which is bananas. But like, that to me is like part of this future vision. It's like, there's this like content and community and coaching angle. If you're using the influencer mechanism to attract attention, where these people want to be taught by you, right? So like this Thursday, I'm doing my second one-to-many call, right? The last one, I had 180 people that showed up. I closed 29 of them on the wire for $997 the first time I ever did it. So what's $997? It's this community where like I'm posting stuff that I'm saying like, I can't post this stuff on LinkedIn because it's not viral, but it's what I really think. Monthly trainings from me. I got a guy running the community who's like putting people into groups and their growth groups or whatever. So that's the $997 tier. Oh, it's 4 courses that I made on everything I know about startups and a year of RB2B Pro for free, right? So like my view was we're freemium, 90% of people don't pay. I'll just like push them into this, even though they're not going to buy software.
This other thing people will pay
I'll push
for.
them into this other thing, right? And then for $29.97, here's where it gets bananas. And this is just like when I was starting retention.com, Drift, the chatbot, like this brand in 2019 came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was big.
Hottest brand in B2B, growing faster than anybody. I would have done anything to know what these guys were doing to do what they were doing. Right. So I made a whole community. That's my pitch for the community. It's like, guys, like, we'll just show you we're growing faster than anybody. We'll show you how we went 0 to 3 million ARR in 6 months. And you can ask us any questions about it. And then for $29.97, I'm saying, this is my team of 6 people and 6 agencies that's making all this happen. There's a one-to-many call you can come to every week. Ask me any questions you want. Ask Santosh any questions you want. Ask our cold email guy any questions you want. Ask our LinkedIn thought leadership guys any questions you want. Our growth guy, whatever, right? And we had our first group call today, and people were just like, this is fucking bananas, right? Think about that. It's like, if you're trying to get a startup off the ground and there's this company that like got to 3 million faster than you could even like write 3 lines of code, and they're willing to share everything with you about how they did it. What is that worth? I don't know. I would have paid $30,000 for that back in the day to like talk to Dave Gerhardt and Dave Cancel. So anyway, this is my vision of a totally future-proof go-to-market. I don't see any part of that becoming compromised in any way.
That's cool. It's difficult for people to execute that who don't have experience and audience.
Yeah, essentially you're creating more of an inbound funnel too, right? Like you're
totally.
That's part of it, right? And it's about timing. Yeah. It's about timing and inbound, right?
There's a lot that it's about.
The future of outbound is there is none.
Right. Yeah. The future of outbound is you are going to meet someone in the real world and sell to them.
Maybe that's the title of the episode. The future of outbound is there is none. So, thank you for sharing all that. That's deep. And I think it's helpful to a lot of people who are trying to figure it out. And you've just sort of laid out this playbook for them. So, appreciate you sharing all that. We got to actually move to wrapping this thing up because I know. Well, of course you will.
So a friend of mine wants 1 hour is not long enough anymore.
I was gonna have a friend who says, the person who goes to the meeting and talks the most is the one who thinks the meeting's fantastic. So.
You're probably right. I just I get very fired up about this stuff.
That's all right. No, but it was good. It really was good. So I'm just I just gotta bust your chops a little bit. So we gotta move to talking about our sponsors real quick, and then turn around and let you ask us a question or two. The first one we'll talk about is our friends Brandon over at Peel, getpeel.ai. If you are looking to engage more deeply, more intimately, and better with your potential prospects, or as I like to call them, suspects, right? You were talking earlier, they're not leads, they're suspects at best, right? At best, someone comes to your website, might be a suspect, right? Be sure to check out peel.ai or getpeel.ai, because they will definitely help you out and help you get there faster and build that funnel that Adam's talking about. So, Scott, I know you got someone you also want to chat about.
Yeah, there's a lot of people from different industries who listen to this show, and some of you might be thinking about making the switch over to tech and trying to land an entry-level sales role at a tech company. So check out techsalesaccelerator.com. They've got a collection of courses that are designed to give you a complete blueprint for how to land that first entry-level job at a tech company you love and become a consistent 6-figure earner. Check it out at techsalesaccelerator.com. Adam, how can we be helpful to you, man? Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I just want to know, you guys live and breathe this stuff. So like, let's talk about, I have questions about both of the sponsors actually. So it's like, what do you think an entry-level tech sales role will look like in 4 years? Presumably it was like you started at BDR before, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's probably what this is now still, I would think, most of the time.
Yeah.
Maybe. But like, what is that even, what is the, like, I believe that we're still going to have salespeople in some regard. It's just the bar's got to keep going higher. That's my thesis. I'm wondering what you guys think about where it's going.
My take would be, well, just to answer your very specific question about what will the role look like 4 years from now, I think it will be somebody who calls upon all these freemium users and accounts trying to basically like activate. It's almost like a activation sales.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
They're not prospecting at all. They're not sourcing. They're sure as shit not, writing fancy email copy and all this kind
Right.
of stuff. But the entry level role is going to this bucket of these freemium users have been using this product for, I don't know, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, whatever the hell. And you're just trying to convert them because
Yep.
that's the closest thing to like entry level shooting fish in a barrel type thing that there is. And I think, you can have a pretty decent success rate with that, assuming you've got a good product that's working. And that's maybe where somebody starts to get the chops to, learn how to sell. That would be my guess. Richard, you want to take a shot at that?
Yeah. So I'll sort of create that it's going to be a bigger earthquake, and it's going to fucking scare the shit out of some people. The first thing that's going to happen is, as long as there are multi-threaded sales, you do not have a PLG service, right? Like that's a big part of it. Maybe in e-commerce, you can have a multi-threaded sale because lots of people have to touch it. But even then, that's a different sophistication of your buyer, right? Because of, something in e-commerce, they put on their website, they know what they're doing a lot more so.
Yep.
What I think is going to happen is the reps that exist are going to be full cycle. I think that the marketing team is going to own a much more specific number. And I know that scares the shit out of them because to this point of owning inbound, right, and driving this interest in a different way, well, MQLs and SQLs ain't going to cut it for you to have your job. I think you're going to see a mass exodus of sales leadership because you're not going to be able to bring these SDRs and BDRs in at the level you want to then groom them into sales reps, which means you're going to be hiring more young people who have no idea about selling, which means you're going to have to do training and coaching. And so I think there's going to be this massive tectonic plate shift in the way the infrastructure of your organization is going to change. It's not even just about the SDR role, right? It's going to affect marketing. It's going to affect product. It's going to affect the ability, as you said, to figure out what your customers need and want and redefine your ICP faster, right? How are you going to do that, right? You're going to need more product marketing knowledge. You're going to need more tech knowledge from your developers to see what they want and see what can be built. You're going to need it from marketing to drive people to the top of the funnel. You're going to need salespeople to have conversations. So I think it's going to be a much more massive shift than people are thinking about or willing to think about. Right now, they're all like, oh, thank God, it's all going to be the SDR role that's changing. And when in fact, no, it's not the case. So
love that. I mean, time will tell.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure, it's going to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like, I don't think anyone knows exactly how, but like, man, there are some tidal waves coming.
And to your point about this influencer piece, how does that affect everything? Right.
Yeah.
The influencer thing is about trying to adjust urgency around timing based on telling a story in the right way, having the right people support and help you tell that story, whether it's internal with your organization like you are in public, or if it's external and hiring, influencers. So I think that's a big piece of this change that affects all those other things I was talking about, because it's fundamentally shifting the sense of urgency and influence to get that done.
Totally. Right? It's I just think it's shifting the way stories are told about software. And if you were to ask me like, will every company get lifted off the ground in the way I'm describing that I'm doing 5 years from now? I don't think so, but every year that goes by, more of them will, because it is so efficient when you get that magical alignment between you are your ICP and your ICP lives on some platform, and you can just make them the best content because no one else can articulate the pain like you or whatever. There's just no way a paid ad can compete with that, right? Or anything else for that matter. So anyway.
Yeah. I still think you have to have that paid ad, because the influencer and all those things, at some point, somebody's going to Google it, right? At some point. And so you still have to have it there. And yes, SEO can work, but even that's changing and getting harder. Probably harder.
I don't think people are going to Google it. I don't think people are going to Google it.
You don't?
In 5, 10 years? Why? Who uses Google right now? Everybody uses ChatGPT. What if you have, how do I get, okay, here's the future. You talk about influencers and bundles and products and whatnot. If somebody's said, how do we get Adam or Scott or Richard to show up in ChatGPT results for certain queries?
Yeah, that's
what I want. That's what I want.
Yeah.
When you go to Google and you type in, like, who's the best thought leaders on LinkedIn or whatever, like, I don't know, you'll get some sort of results. They'll be opaque and there'll be a million articles, whatever. How do I get it so if somebody asks that query of ChatGPT, it literally says Adam, Scott, and Richard are the best? Yeah. Do you pay for that?
Well,
how do I programmatically weasel my way in there? Because that would have some value. That would have some value.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, because right now, if you go to Google and you Google something, you do get a Gemini response at the top summarizing the links below, summarizing the data, right? So it's to your point, though, it's still very vague, but you are right. I think that's where Google will be able to use their search engine that way, but that's a whole other conversation. So,
and will brands or people be able to pay for that placement?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. No. So that's where the Google AdWords are going to come. That's where you do.
All right, Adam. I'd ask people where to find you to get in touch with you, but I assume message you on.
I'm just going to say LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what most people say. We appreciate you spending some time with us, man. Keep up the good work.
Dude, thanks a lot. It was really fun. And I apologize for taking 80% of the airtime.
Hey, it makes our job easier. Yeah. It's our job's easy.
The way I look at it, it's less time I had to listen to Richard talk. So,
yeah.
That's a big win.
I'm so excited to see you in Costa Rica, Scott.
A couple weeks, man. Couple weeks. If you want to get on the wait list for Surf and Sales 2025, go to the website surfandsales.com, and we will see you all next time on another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. Peace, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Take care.